There is one machine in your house that never gets to rest. Not the stove that sits cold most of the day, not the washer that runs a few hours a week. Your refrigerator. It runs every hour of every day all year long for years on end, holding back the warm air and keeping your family's food from spoiling, and it never once shuts off for good. And when it finally dies, and most folks die years before they should, you are looking at $1,500, $2,000, sometimes $2,500 for a new one, or a $300 visit from a man who may or may not be able to save it. Now here is the part nobody at the appliance store will tell you. The great majority of refrigerators that die do not die of old age. They die of one thing, one simple thing, that goes wrong slowly and quietly over years that you cannot see because it happens on a part of the fridge you never look at, and that you could have prevented entirely with about $1 worth of work, 20 minutes, twice a year. Most of these machines that give out at 8 or 10 years should have run 15 or 20. And the difference between the two is almost always the same one thing. My name is Elias Yoder. I am Amish and I farm here in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Now my own household runs on a gas refrigerator and an ice house, not the electric kind most of you have, but I have helped enough English neighbors nurse a dying icebox back to life and heard enough of them tell me what the repairmen said that I know exactly where these machines go wrong, and I am going to tell you plainly, the same as I always do. And understand, my people have always taken care of a thing so that it lasts. When you cannot just run down to the store and buy a new one on a whim, when a machine is dear and hard-earned, you learn to tend it, to keep it, to make it serve you and then serve your children after you. That is the whole habit of mind behind everything I am going to tell you today. A refrigerator is not a thing you use up and throw away. It is a thing you keep. Stay with me, because this one could save you a couple $1,000s and a very bad week without a fridge. Let me tell you first what actually kills a refrigerator, because once you understand it, the fix makes perfect sense. A refrigerator does not make cold. There is no such thing as cold, not really. What it does is take the heat out of the air inside the box and carry that heat outside, out into your kitchen, and dump it there. And the part that does that dumping, the part where all the heat leaves the machine, is a set of thin black coils, either on the back of the fridge or underneath it behind a little grill at the floor. Those are called the condenser coils, and their whole job is to shed heat into the room. As long as they can breathe, as long as the air moves freely across them, they shed that heat easy, and the compressor, which is the heart of the whole machine, and the one part that costs the earth to replace, only has to work a little. But here is what happens over the months and the years, down there where you never look. Those coils fur up. Dust settles on them. If you have a cat or a dog, their hair drifts down and mats onto them. The grease that floats in the air of every kitchen where food gets cooked settles on them and turns that dust into a sticky felt. And a coil wearing a thick coat of dust and hair and grease cannot shed its heat anymore. It is like a man trying to cool off on a hot day wrapped up in a wool blanket. The heat cannot get out. And so the compressor, the heart, has to run longer and longer to get the same cooling done. And it runs hotter and hotter while it does it, hour after hour, day after day, year after year, until one day, years before its time, it simply burns itself out and dies. And that is your fridge gone. That is the $2,000 morning. And the repairman, if you called one, would very likely have found nothing wrong with that machine at all, except that its coils had not been cleaned in 10 years, and its heart worked itself to death trying to breathe through a blanket. I will tell you a story that made this plain to me. An English neighbor, a good man with a house full of children and a big shaggy dog, called me over one summer because his kitchen was warm as an oven and his fridge was roaring away and the milk had gone off in it. He was already talking about which new one he would buy, already sick over the money, for it was a bad year for him. And I said, "Before you spend a dime, let us pull it out and have a look at the back of it." Well, we walked that fridge out from the wall, and I have rarely seen the like. The coils were not black, they were gray, felted over solid with an inch of dog hair and dust and kitchen grease, so thick you could have written your name in it, so thick the coils could not have shed a candle's worth of heat. That poor machine had been running flat out for who knows how long, trying to breathe through a fur coat in July. We unplugged it, brushed and vacuumed all that felt away, cleaned the fan, and pushed it back. By that evening it was cold again and had shut itself off for the first time in weeks, resting quiet the way a healthy fridge does. That was 5 years ago. He is still running that same refrigerator. It cost him nothing but 20 minutes and a look at a part he had never once seen in the 10 years he had owned it. The appliance men know this. Ask any honest one, and he will tell you that a dirty coil is behind a great share of the dead refrigerators he is called out to. A clean coil can cut the work the compressor has to do by as much as a third less work every hour for the whole life of the machine. That is the difference between a fridge that dies at 9 and a fridge that runs past 20. And it is done with a brush. So here's the fix, and I told you it costs about $1, and it does. You want a coil brush, a long skinny brush with bristles all around it, made for exactly this, and it runs about $5 at any hardware store and lasts the rest of your life. Or, if you would rather spend nothing at all, the crevice tool on the vacuum you already own will do most of the job. Now, twice a year, spring and fall, you do this. First, and this matters, you unplug the refrigerator. Pull the plug from the wall. You are going to be working around a machine with a fan and electric parts, and you unplug it first, every time, no exceptions. Then you get at the coils. On many fridges, they are behind a little vented grill right at the floor across the front, and that grill just pops or unclips off. On others, the coils are on the back, and you gently walk the fridge out from the wall to reach them. Then you take your brush and your vacuum and you clean them. Brush the dust and the hair and the greasy felt down off the coils and vacuum it up as you go. Get the fan back there clean too, and vacuum the floor underneath while you are down there, because all that dust just gets pulled back up otherwise. 20 minutes, start to finish. Then push it back, plug it in, and you are done. And you have just done more for the life of that machine than anything else you could possibly do to it. Now, I promised you a pantry item, and here it is, and I will be honest with you about exactly what it does and does not do, the way I always am. The item is plain baking soda, and it has 3 real jobs around a refrigerator, and every one of them helps the machine live longer. The first, and the most important, is the door seal. Look at the rubber gasket that runs all the way around the door of your fridge. That soft rubber seal is the whole reason the cold stays in, and over the years it gets crusted with spills and sticky food and grime, and it goes stiff, and it starts to pull away, and once it does, the cold air leaks out around it, slow and steady, all day long. And what happens then? The compressor, the heart, has to run and run to replace the cold that is leaking away, the very same overwork that kills it. So you take a cloth with a little baking soda and warm water on it, and you wipe that whole gasket clean, right down into the folds of it, twice a year when you do the coils. Keep it clean, and it stays soft, and it seals tight. And here's a way to test that seal that costs you nothing. Close the door on a dollar bill, half in and half out, and then try to pull the bill out. If it drags, if you feel it grip, your seal is good. If it slides right out with no resistance, your seal is weak and cold is leaking. And here's the good news. A door gasket is a cheap part you can replace for $20 or $30. That is not a dead fridge. That is a $20 fix that saves the whole machine. Most folks never think to check it, and their compressor pays the price. The second job for the baking soda is the drip pan. Underneath most refrigerators, there is a shallow pan that catches the water the machine sheds as it runs. And that pan sits there warm and wet and dark, and it grows mildew, and it starts to smell. And that is often the mystery smell folks can never find. When you have the fridge pulled out for the coils, slide that pan out, wash it with baking soda and warm water, and slide it back. And the third job is the plain one everybody knows. An open box of baking soda sitting on a shelf inside the fridge quietly soaks up the odors so your butter does not taste of last night's onions. A dollar box, changed a few times a year. Now let me give you 2 or 3 more things that cost nothing at all and add years to the machine. Because while you are thinking about it, you may as well do the whole job. The first is air. A refrigerator has to shed its heat into the room, so it needs room to do it. If you have shoved yours up tight against the wall or boxed it into a tight cabinet with no gap around it, it is choking on its own heat, running hot all day and dying early. Pull it out so there are a few inches of clear air behind it and above it. Give it room to breathe, and keep it out of the direct sun from a window and away from the side of the stove or the oven, because a fridge sitting next to a heat source fights that heat every hour it runs. The second is the temperature. A great many folks run their refrigerator far colder than it ever needs to be, out of a vague notion that colder is safer. Your fridge wants to sit right around 37 to 40 degrees, and your freezer right around 0. Any colder than that, and you are just making the compressor work harder for nothing, wearing out the heart to freeze food that was already cold enough. Get a $2 thermometer, set it right, and stop overworking the machine. And the third is a fair bit of food. This one surprises people. A refrigerator with some food in it holds its cold better than an empty one, because all that cold food and drink is itself a store of cold, and it helps the box stay cold between the times the compressor runs, so the compressor runs less. You do not want it jammed so tight that the air cannot move around inside, mind, for the cold has to circulate, and blocking the little vents at the back of the inside is its own kind of trouble. But a fridge with a good bit in it is easier on the machine than a near empty one, so keep it reasonably full, and if it is mostly empty, a few jugs of water on the shelves will do the same good and cost you nothing. And here is one more small habit that saves the heart a great deal of work over a year, and it is the plainest thing in the world. Do not stand there with the door hanging open, staring in, deciding what you want. Every second that door is open, the cold you paid for is pouring out onto the kitchen floor, and warm air is rolling in to take its place, and the compressor has to run to make all that cold over again. Know what you want before you open it, get it, and close the door. And never, ever put a pot of food in there still hot from the stove. Let it cool on the counter first, because a hot pot set inside is like lighting a small fire in the very place the machine is trying to keep cold, and it drives the compressor hard for an hour to undo it. Let it cool first, then in it goes. These are little things, but a machine that runs every hour of every year is made or broken by the little things done 1,000 times over. And one word for the freezer, since it is the same machine really, sharing the same heart. If yours is the old kind that frosts up, the kind that is not self-defrosting, then do not let that frost build into a great thick coat of ice on the walls. That ice is a blanket, just like the dust on the coils. It keeps the cold from reaching where it needs to go, and it makes the machine work harder to hold its temperature. When it builds up much past a 1/4 inch, empty it out, unplug it, and let it defrost, and set a pan of hot water inside to hurry it along. Never a knife or a pick that could puncture the wall and end the machine for good. And if your freezer makes ice with a little water line running to it, know that that line has a small filter that folks forget for years until the ice slows to a trickle. It is a cheap part and an easy change, and a clogged one makes the machine strain. Little things, all of them, but the heart lasts longer when nothing around it is forced to strain. Now let me be honest with you about the limits of all this, because I will not oversell you and call it done. If your compressor is already failing, if the fridge is already running warm, and the food is spoiling, and the motor is roaring hot and never shutting off, then the heart may already be going, and no brush and no baking soda brings a dead heart back. And when the sealed cooling system truly fails, the pipes that carry the refrigerant, that is a job for a professional with the proper tools and license. Or honestly, on an older machine, it is the day you buy a new one. I am not telling you these methods raise the dead. I am telling you they keep the machine from dying young in the first place. There is a world of difference between the two. A refrigerator that is tended, coils clean, sealed tight, air around it set right, will very often run 15, 18, 20 years and more. The same machine, shoved against a wall with coils like a shag rug and a seal hanging loose, dies at 8 or 9, and the family never knows it was their own neglect that did it, because nobody ever told them the machine needed tending at all. And that is the quiet truth of the whole thing. Think about who profits from your fridge dying at 9 instead of 19. There is no money in a store telling you to brush a coil for free twice a year and keep your machine for 20 years. There is a great deal of money in selling you a brand new $2,000 refrigerator every decade, and in the repair call besides. Nobody puts a sticker on the door that says, "Clean these coils twice a year or this machine will die before its time," though it is the truest thing that could be said about it. The knowledge is not hidden in any vault. It is just that nobody with anything to sell has one single reason to teach it to you. And so a whole nation runs their refrigerators into an early grave and buys another and calls it normal and never once thinks to look at the coils. You do not have to be one of them. So here is what I want you to do this week. Go and unplug your refrigerator. Pull it out from the wall and just look at the coils, on the back or down behind that grill at the floor. Just look at them. I would wager most of you have never once laid eyes on them, and I would wager they are wearing a thick gray coat of dust and hair that has been slowly strangling your machine for years. Brush them clean, vacuum them out, wipe the door seal with a little baking soda, check it with the dollar bill, slide the drip pan out and wash it, give the fridge a few inches of air and set the thermometer right. 20 minutes and about $1 twice a year, and that machine will very likely outlive the mortgage. Tell me down in the comments, when you pull yours out and look at those coils, how bad were they? And how old is your refrigerator? I want to hear it, because I would wager the older and dustier ones are the very houses that have been through 2 or 3 fridges already and never knew why. And if you have an old refrigerator that has run 20 years or more, tell us your secret, because the old machines that last are the ones that were tended. Next time, since we have been speaking of the machines that serve us, I'm going to show you the old way we keep a thing cold with no machine at all. The spring house, and the cool cellar, and the running water. The way a family kept its milk and its butter sweet through a hot summer, long before there was ever an electric icebox to plug in. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, unplug it, brush the coils, wipe the seal, and remember that the machine that never rests will serve you twice as long if you will only tend it twice a year.